be posing out the up pose, which is our final pose for the sequence. Before we start going in and refining everything, let's jump back to our Maya scene file where I've already animated this, and let's take a look at the front view. Okay, so as the leg lifts up and crosses to the front here, the hip is also going to move up and forward, and the back leg is straightening out here, and you can see that all of the weight is at the ball of the foot where it's pushing off into the up position. So this is the highest point that the character is at, and that the arms are also rotating now into the opposite direction. Okay, let's move on over here to our working scene file and move forward to frame 13 on our timeline. And let's go ahead and start positioning this. I'm just going to grab the root control and move this up, and I'll probably put it right around 0.24. Let's start with that, and then I'm going to take the foot that's swinging to the forward position. I'm going to move that up. Okay, we've got some rotation happening right here, so I'm going to take off some of that rotation as the foot begins to flatten out. I think I'm just going to lower it down a little bit, maybe 4.25. And that translate Z, I'm going to reduce that down as well. Okay, and then the rotate X. Just taking that off a little bit, and the heel ball, I'm going to just reduce that a little bit now. 3.3, and the toe rotation, I'm going to just reduce that as well to just -2. Okay, I'm going to now take the back foot, the controller for the back foot. Let me grab it over here and sliding this to the back. So for our translate Z, I'm going to try and push this to 1.2. So I've got a nice angle there. The heel ball, this is going to bring the foot into the down position right here and kind of get it into a place where it's making contact with the floor. Okay, and then I'm going to use the toe up down to just make that final contact right there. It's just a very subtle movement there, and it's actually going through the floor a tiny bit. Let me just take that down. Oh. There we go. Okay, so that looks good on the legs. Let's take a look at the hip rotation. So this may affect the positioning of our feet on the floor here. I'm going to take this and rotate it forward. Okay, and actually that -4 actually should have been a positive number. We're going to have to go back and correct that. So this hip is swinging forward right now, and the rotate Z, I'm going to just double that and take that to 5. Okay, and this needs to be a negative number, so there we go. So this is picking the foot up causes the hip to rise as well as move forward. And I think I need to go back to frame 9 and just make a couple adjustments there. I think I had a negative number instead of a positive, or vice versa rather. Okay, so that looks good. Let's just make sure the foot is making contact here. Okay, so it is just going through the floor slightly. I'm going to grab that controller, back to -0.2, and that looks good. Okay, let's start rotating the shoulders back. So I'm going to just start with the clavicle and start swinging that back. So we'll set this at 7. Grab the shoulder here. This is going to start swinging back in Y, about there. So I'll just round that off to 20. I'm going to check the elbow. So we've got a little bit of rotation happening on the elbow. There is some drag happening here, so as the arm swings back, there's a little bit of drag. And I'm just going to take this to 20. Okay, and over here to the other arm. So this arm's going to start swinging forward. So we'll put a -7. And then on the shoulder, swinging forward. So we'll have a -15 here. Actually, we could probably push that a little bit more. Let's do that to 20. And then for the elbow, I'm just going to leave it in position right there. All right. So that looks like a decent crossing pose there. We want to make sure that it feels like the weight is sitting over the ball of this foot. This leg is straight, it's pushing up. Character's gone into its highest point. Okay, I think this can maybe rotate back just a little more. All right, I'm going to select all the controllers, hit S on the keyboard, come down here, right mouse click, copy, come down to frame 29 and paste that. Okay, and I'm going to begin switching out the left and right. I'm going to start with the hip. Usually I start with the clavicles and work my way down. I'm actually going to get the feet positioned first and then come back and get the arms. Okay, so I'm just going to switch these out. So this is going to be -10 and 5. Okay, and then I'm going to switch the positions of the feet. So we've got our forward foot here that's got quite a bit of information on it, as well as our back leg. I'm going to go ahead and write down this information on a sheet of paper next to me. All right, then I'm going to begin to copy and paste the channel information from this leg over to the opposite leg. So Control C to copy that, Control V and enter. And that should be the opposite, so I'm going to take the negative out of there. All right, and then Translate Z, I'm going to copy, come over here, paste it, and that should also be a negative number, so that brings the, removing that negative number brings the foot into the forward position. Okay, and then we've got a -10 here. Okay, and then it's just the heel ball. So we've got 3.3. Copy that, which is very close to where we are on this side. And -2 here. So copy and paste that. Okay, those are in the same position now. We're just seeing a little rotation from the hip that's causing it to not line up perfectly. All right, so I'm now going to select this foot to go into the back position and enter in those numbers that I had written down. So I'm going to zero this out. This is going to be 1.2. Sends the foot back. This is going to be 0. Our heel ball is just going to go to 3.4. And this is going to be -0.2. Okay, so that puts our foot there on the ground. It looks like it's making contact nicely and not going through the floor. All right, I'm going to go ahead and select everything, hit S on the keyboard to overwrite those keyframes, and I'm now going to start working my way down the arms, starting with the clavicle. Okay, so I'm just going to swap out these numbers. This will be -7, +7. All right, and we've got a 25 on this side, and a -20 over here, so swapping those out. All right, and for the elbows, I've got a -20 on this side and a -10. Okay, so we'll put -20 here and -10 here. All right, and let's just take a look at that. I'm going to go ahead and select all of them, hit S on the keyboard, and then I'm going to flip between 13 and 29. And the legs, I'm looking at the legs, those look like they are exactly in the same place, and the shoulders look good. Right, so that looks good. Alright, I'm just going to jump back here and make a couple corrections, I think, to the hips on frame 9, and then apply that to frame 25. So if I look at the hip here, I've got a -4, and then when I go to frame 13, it's going forward. So let's make this a positive number. I'm going to put 5 in there. I'm going to hit S on the keyboard. I'm going to just check and make sure that didn't do anything with the feet, and the feet look fine. Okay, and then I just want to check this again. So we've got a negative number happening over here. And I think what I'm going to do is just zero this out. Hit S on the keyboard, come back and check 5. So we had a 5 here on frame 5. Then it goes to 0 on the crossing pose, which makes sense. And then 13, we have a -5. Okay. So over here on frame 25, I'm going to zero this out. And then I'm going to put a -5 over here. Alright, and then hit S on the keyboard. Alright, so it goes from -5 to -10 over here as the hip starts swinging into the upward position. Alright, and let's just save our scene file. Alright, and I'm going to go ahead and just play this and take a look at what's going on here. So I'm looking at the hips. They look like they are rolling fine. The arms are swinging nicely. So it looks very stuttered right now, and that's because we used our flat and stepped tangents. And once we come out of that and we add the curves in there, we'll have some nice flowing motion. Okay, so I'm just going to look at it from the side view. That all looks good. So there's some drag happening on the forearms, I can see, and once we put the hand drag in there, that'll look nice. So the feet are making really nice contact with the floor. So I'm going to go ahead and stop that. Okay, and we'll come back in the next lesson and we will change the tangents on the curves and begin the process of finaling this.